Hey everyone, my name is Higgy. As a follow-up to my last video, I wanted to walk through the process of testing Loom locally and progressively deploying Loom into your AWS account. Let's start with a few prerequisites. I'm using a brand new AWS account where I already set up a VPC with public and private subnets. The public subnets, of course, have an internet gateway. The private subnets have a regional NAT gateway. I already created an S3 bucket that I'll use for SAM deployments. This is separate from the bucket that is used by Loom for deploying into Agent Core runtime. And the latter three on this list will be done by following the deployment guide, which is found at the root of the GitHub repository. Here's a visual of the different prerequisite components. I created a bunch of these ahead of this recording, the public and private subnets, the SAM deployment bucket. The two service link roles will be created following the deployment guide. I'll also create a subdomain in this new account. In order to make it a valid public domain, I'll need to create name server records in the root domain, which I'll do later in this video. To get started, of course, I need to clone the repository. Then I'll need to update the environment files, which I'll do following the deployment guide. I'm big on using makefiles and environment configurations for injecting parameters. I tried to make it as easy as possible in this project by centralizing the updates that you need to make in mostly two files. And I also created a helper script to automatically extract output values from the different CloudFormation stacks that you deploy. And a big caveat here, I'm going to expose a bunch of configurations, secrets, passwords that normally should not be public. This whole environment will be torn down after this recording, so don't worry about the fact that database passwords and user credentials are displayed in plain text in this recording. Okay, let's go to the terminal and deployment guide. Let me switch over. Give me 1 second. Let me just make sure everything is good. Okay, so here we have the three deployment phases: local testing with Cognito, hybrid where we'll move the database into RDS in my AWS account, and the full deployment. These are a variety of the different prerequisites that I already covered as part of the chat right before this. So VPC networking, the S3 bucket, and the Route 53 configuration. The first thing that we'll need to do then is update the CloudWatch transaction search, and this is required for Agent Core observability. Let me switch over to the AWS console, and we'll click into CloudWatch. And here we'll switch into transaction search, and here you'll see in the top left here, again, in a fresh account, this is something that you'll need to enable. We'll click the Enable Transaction Search, click the toggle, and we'll go ahead and hit Save. This usually takes a couple of minutes, so we're going to kind of move on from here. We'll go back to the terminal with the deployment guide. And the first thing that we need to do is we want to clone the repository, and then we're going to set up the environment files. So I have a bunch of template examples that you'll need to copy as working environment files, which I'll do momentarily. Let me put the deployment guide away. We'll switch over to the terminal. Let's go ahead and clone the repository. We'll go into the repo, and let me copy those commands to set up those working environment files. Okay, so those are set up. Let's take a look at what we get in those environment files. So if we look at the common environment file, there are a bunch of variables that are going to be used across all of the different stacks. And so to make this simple, I've put this all in a single place that you'll need to update it. And these will then be propagated into the different environment files that you'll be using. So let's go take a look at that. So we'll switch over to Kiro. And you'll see that Loom has now been cloned in here. Let's take a look at shared. We go into Etsy. You see these are the example files, but you see that we've now created them. So again, this is just a copy of the different configurations. And you'll see that I've actually gone ahead and pre-configured this. This will probably just take you a few minutes to be able to extract these details out of your AWS account. And again, these are the passwords that we're going to be using. And again, these are secrets that will be deleted after this deployment. Okay, let's switch back we're going to have to make one more quick change. So if you look at the tag owner, this is something where we want to set this for both the backend, front end, and the shared environments. And this is just basically setting the owner alias. I made it separate because maybe it's possible you have different owners for the backend and front end. And so again, this was all dependent on what your requirements were. So we switch back into Kiro. I'm going to do that first in the shared environment. So let's make this Higgy, save that. We'll go to the front end. We'll make this one Higgy. And then we'll go into the back end and make this Higgy. Okay, so that's all we need to do to set up this environment. We'll go back to the deployment guide, and now we're in phase 1. So we'll do local testing. So front end, back end is on my local machine along with the SQLite database. The deployments will happen to the S3 Loom artifact bucket, but we need this Cognito user pool. So this is the first thing that we're going to go ahead and set up. So we'll move into shared and we'll create that. So let's get that started and we'll check out what the next pieces are. Okay, so we'll move into shared. We'll start the Cognito deployment, and let's bring up the deployment guide again. And you'll see that I covered this a little bit in the prior video, but you'll see that there are two different users. Or different group types. There's the admin, and then there's the user type. And then you'll see that there are a number of different resource groups. So after we've got the Cognito group set up, we're going to actually then have to capture the outputs. And this is that helper script that I've created. It will go and query a variety of the different CloudFormation stacks that we'll be creating throughout this guide. If that stack does not yet exist, the script will just basically skip over it and indicate that there are no outputs to be captured yet. We're going to need to do this probably after we do a deployment in most of the stacks. And in this case, we'll do that here. We'll capture the user pool ID, and then we'll use that to then set the passwords from that common file that we just set up. Okay, so it looks like that deployment has set up. So let's go ahead and make outputs. So you'll see that it's querying a variety of stacks which we haven't deployed yet, and so therefore it says, not found or no outputs. But you'll see here for Loom Cognito, it has captured those outputs. So let's go ahead and set the passwords. Set passwords, if I could spell it correctly, and it will go through and set all the passwords. So let's bring up the deployment guide again. So after all of the passwords are set, we're going to go ahead and start the back end, and we'll start the front end. What we'll need to do is once we start the back end, we'll set up the Python environment, and then we'll also do the same thing, installing the dependencies for both the back end and the front end. Okay, so I think it should be about done. We're gonna, after it finishes this, we'll clear this, and then we'll split the panes and do this in two separate panes. Okay, so let's clear this. We're gonna split, actually no, I wanna do a vertical split. Let's do a vertical split. So let's go to the back end. We'll create the virtual environment. We're gonna do a make install. And then once this gets up and running, we'll then start up the Fast API backend. Okay, make run. Meanwhile, while that's going, we'll go to the front end. We're going to do a make install here, which is basically an npm install of the local dependencies. And then once this is up and running, we'll start the front end, and then we'll go ahead and check out the front end UI. Okay, so we could do that. Okay, so we're up and running. Let's switch over to the Loom UI, which is up and running here. And I'm going to log in just as the admin user, admin. And you'll see we basically have nothing in here because, of course, we haven't configured anything yet. But we were up and running, and this was hopefully a pretty quick local setup for us. Okay, let's switch back to the terminal, and we're going to bring up the deployment guide. So we've started the backend, we started the front end, and we were able to access localhost using the Cognito user that we had configured in common. Okay, we're going to switch to, or we're going to transition to phase 2 now, where we're going to move the database, which is currently SQLite, into RDS deployed into my AWS account. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to create the RDS database, and then we're also going to configure our EC2 bastion. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to switch back to the terminal. I'm going to close these, kill this, close this. and we're actually operating in the backend. So we're going to go ahead and create the RDS database, and then we're going to create the EC2 instance. Okay, so we'll let that go a little bit, and then let's go back to the session here, the deployment guide. So RDS is probably going to take about 25 minutes. So after we let this go and do a little bit of explanation, we'll probably pause the video. The EC2 instance takes about 3 minutes or so, plus minus, maybe 10 seconds or so. Again, RDS is going to be creating both the database and the proxy. And again, this is why it takes a little bit of time. We'll come back in the video and we'll do step 2 together in that backend environment file. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, and we will come back after this. Okay, and we're back. So I checked in the background. It looks like it took a little under 3 minutes for my EC2 instance, and then RDS, it took about 25 minutes total, 15 minutes of that on the RDS instance itself, and then about 10 of that on the RDS proxy. Okay, so yeah, so this is the completed deployment. You'll also note that the secrets are stored in Secrets Manager. Again, we don't store any of those secrets in Loom itself. Okay, so what we'll next need to do is we'll need to go into the environment file for the backend. We're going to switch to setting up the database to now point to the RDS database. So let's do a couple of things here. So let's first capture the outputs. Oops, we got to go to shared and typing that correctly. Make outputs. So we're going to capture that. We should see now there will be the Loom RDS stack where we'll capture there. You'll see that we captured the outputs there, and you'll see that we have that secret ARN there as well. Okay, so we've captured that. Oops, sorry, I should have showed you there. So we've captured Loom RDS there, and Loom EC2. We got those outputs, and you'll see that we have some of the secrets and the proxy endpoint. Okay, so next what we want to do is we want to then start up the tunnel, and we want to then run the backend. Actually, before we do that, one thing that we could optionally do is if we were doing a bunch of configurations in our SQLite database, we could have actually ported over all of the data there and moved it into the RDS database. But because we didn't really do much in our database because we're trying to move quickly, we're going to skip this step. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear all of this. So let's clear this. Let's clear this. Let's go to the back end. I'm going to start up the tunnel over here. We've captured the output, so now it's waiting for the connection. Let's run the Fast API application. We should see that it is, oh, you know what? We didn't actually, let's switch over to Kiro first. We got to make those changes. So let's go to Kiro. And here you'll see that we're pointing to the SQLite database. We're going to point to localhost for the tunnel. And then we got to set the database URL to point to the Postgres database. Okay. Now, if we go to here, we'll do this, and we'll run this. So we'll see this now try to connect to the database, and you'll also see that the tunnel accepted that connection. So we're now actually connecting from the backend on my local machine through the tunnel to the RDS database. Then what we'll do is we'll start up the front end. So let's switch over to the front end, make dev, and there we have the front end running. If I switch over to Loom, I guess if you'll believe me, it's now connected to the RDS database. So again, we can log in, but again, we won't really see much in here. But this is connected to the RDS database now. Okay, let's go back now. So let's bring up the deployment guide. So we have completed phase 2. Now we're ready to actually deploy the rest of the stack into AWS. So that front end, the back end, the load balancer, etc. So you'll see that there's actually a number of different stacks that we're going to go ahead and deploy here. So the first couple of things we'll do is we'll create the service link role for Agent Core and ECS. We'll create the hosted zone for Route 53 for hosting that subdomain, and then we'll get the outputs. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to actually kill this. We'll kill this. Yeah, we'll kill this, And let's go ahead to make agent core.init. Oh, I gotta do that in the shared folder, agent core.init. So this is creating the service link role for agent core. Actually, you know what? I probably, because I'm redoing this, give me 1 second. Okay, let's try that again. I realized I was actually redoing this recording and I had previously not deleted the service link role. So here we'll do it for agent core and then we'll do this for ECS. And then the next thing that we want to do is we're going to go ahead and create the DNS. So this is creating the hosted zone in this account. After that, what we'll then do is we're going to get the NS records. And as I mentioned before, we'll need to get those NS records and go to the parent account. Again, so that's going to be on a separate account. We're going to need to create the Loom on YouTube NS record in the root account. So I'll bring up the deployment guide. So this is that DNS prerequisite. If you're not doing a subdomain, you can skip this step, but because I am doing a subdomain, if we scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see that the step here is, again, you can do this via CLI. I'm just going to do it via the console just to kind of demonstrate that. When we look at the DNS outputs, you'll see that for NS records, you'll actually see it in the stack output as well. Okay, so it looks like the create is done. Let's scroll back up here. So we're up here. Let's take a look at the DNS outputs. So make DNS.outputs, but you'll see that it's actually already right here. So these are the outputs. So if we go over to the AWS console and we go over to Route 53, let's go to Route 53. You'll see that we have our hosted zone here, Loom on YouTube, and you'll see that these are the NS records that I need to actually put into the other account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up now my other account. This is the root hosted zone, and I'm going to create that record. So this is going to be Loom on YouTube. We're going to have to create the record type of NS. We're going to, oops, I did that twice. We're going to put in that value, and then we're going to go ahead and create that record. If we filter by YouTube, you'll see that this is that record here. And you'll also see up here that Route 53 is going to propagate the changes. It does take, maybe 30 seconds or so. So you'll see status here is listed in pending, and then probably, oh, it already went. So it is now in sync. So that is now available to us. So let's go back here. Actually, I think we can go to the deployment guide. Let's bring up the deployment guide. And so we're at the step where we looked at the DNS outputs. We did propagation. We want to make sure we actually capture the outputs. So let's capture those outputs. Because the next step that we're going to do, so here you'll see that now for DNS, we got those two outputs. So we'll go ahead and capture all of that. And we bring up the guide again. The reason we wanted to do that is because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the infrastructure stack. So we're going to create an ACM certificate, which is dependent on the name server delegation. Okay, so let's go ahead and start that, and then we'll talk through some of the next stuff. Make infra. Okay, after infra, so let's let that one run. That will take a little bit of time. So after infra, we can then create our ECS cluster. The reason is there's a dependency on the ECR repository. I suppose maybe I could have actually just put the ECR repository in with the ECS stack, and I could have then done that independently. But what we can also do while we're waiting for the infrastructure stack to go, actually it looks like I have a failure. Let me go take a look at what happened there. Let me pause and troubleshoot real quick. Okay, found it. So because I was redoing this whole video, the S3 bucket was still in the account, and therefore it conflicted there. So let's go ahead and do the deployment now. Nope. Actually, it looks like also because I had the ECR repository. So hopefully let's give it a try again. Again, I had to record this video, so I left some of the resources in the account. Okay, there we go. So it's going to go ahead and create those. I'm going to go ahead and let that run for a little bit. Let's bring up the deployment guide again. So the dependency there is with ECS as well. After that, we're going to need to create IAM roles. And so the way that I've done this is that, again, because the security admin is going to be able to do this all separately. Again, today Loom doesn't allow you to actually create any IAM roles. Again, I'm thinking about maybe putting that in the future. But for now, a security admin would have to create IAM roles, and then you can import them into Loom. So that's what this make role does. What we'll do is while all of that's going, we'll switch over to Kiro, and I'll show how we actually set that up. There's one thing that we need to do. So on the shared environment file, you'll see that there's this agent name. And so what we'll do in here is we'll go and create YouTube. And what this will effectively do is it's going to create, this is what we're going to use for creating that agent role. So let's switch back over to the terminal. Let's put the deployment guide away. While this is going, we're going to spin up another terminal, and I'm going to go ahead and make the role. Okay. And here you'll see that when it goes and creates the role, it's actually using the agent. It was using the agent name YouTube and the role prefix or the role suffix of YouTube. So it's going to go ahead and create the role, which we could then import when we log in later into the admin account. So here you'll see that it's creating the Loom role -YouTube. Okay, let's bring up the deployment guide again while we wait for both of those. And then again, once the infrastructure stack is completed, we'll be able to then create our ECS Fargate cluster, which is actually a pretty quick operation. So let's go back. We see that the IAM role was created. We can actually capture this ARN because we can import that later. Since we're done there, we can close that and we'll wait. And the main thing that this stack is waiting on is really for DNS record validation. So let's go in the background. I'll take a look and see how we're doing on that validation. It looks like it may be, some of the other resources are now completing. So it looks like the load balancer completed, the listener completed. It looks like the certificate may still be going. So let me take a look at that on the back end and see, double check. I see on the back end that it has been successful. So I think this stack should be completed pretty quickly. Yep, so certificate completed, and it looks like we're probably about to complete. So once the infrastructure stack sets up, so this was for our Loom deployment bucket, our ECR repo, our ECM certificate, and our load balancer. So we're going to want to capture the outputs, and then we'll create that ECS cluster. So let's do a make outputs. So again, we're going to go and query those clusters. You'll see that this infrastructure stack then captured 13 outputs, which is again what we're going to need for making the ECS cluster. And here we're going to now create the cluster, and I think it takes about a minute or two, if even that, to create this cluster. Okay, so we'll let that one go. While that's going, so we've done infra, we're making the ECS stack, we've already done the IAM role. So again, this outputs thing, this is actually now the point at which we've captured all of the outputs, and this is a full listing and table of all of the different outputs that we need to create. And if we look behind us, it looks like the ECS cluster has completed. I'm going to go ahead and capture the outputs one more time because we are going to need that cluster ARN for when we're deploying the front end and back end for the task definitions. Okay, so go to the deployment again. And now we are ready to deploy the front end and back end. So you can actually do a single make deploy action, and this will actually deploy both the back end and front end. It will do it serially. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it independently. I'm going to do the front end and back end in parallel. So let's clear this. Let's actually, I'm going to do this in vertically. We're going to do, what is it again? Let's see. It is make deploy front end and make deploy back end. Deploy front end. And then we'll come over here and we're going to do make deploy backend. Okay, so this is going to build the container image locally. It will then push it up to the ECR repository, and then it will start up the task services. Okay, so because I'm now building two different Docker images locally, it could take a little bit longer. Maybe this is the reason why you may want to do this serially, but again, we're just trying to get this moving along. So we'll let that go in the background, and we'll just look at the deployment guide again. So again, we did this middle one here where we're doing it independently in parallel. So this is that stack dependency graph of the different things that we've been deploying in phase 3. So we did the service link roles and the DNS hosted zone. This infrastructure stack we just did. Cognito we actually did earlier in phase 1. And then the RDS and EC2 we actually did in phase 2. Here we're now actually in the process of deploying both that front end and the back end. And I think the task, it actually takes about 3 minutes for that piece to complete. So we'll give that a go. And again, I did a lot of explanation in this YouTube video, but if you were to kind of power through it pretty quickly with all those configurations, probably best time would be around 35 minutes. Realistically, maybe give yourself an hour to be able to do this full deployment. Okay, while that's going, I'm going to take a quick look in the console, in the AWS console over here, and we see that our two are actually in the middle of creating. If we go to the front end, we could actually take a look at this is the timeline view and the table view. We can see the different resources are being created, and it's mainly this service that I'm actually interested in seeing. So we could actually click over into the service and take a look. Once we have one of the tasks available, we could actually probably bring up the environment, or at least bring up the front end. And again, assuming similar on the back end, we need the back end, we go to resources, we'll take a look at the service. And once we have one healthy service, so again, only one pending right now, once we have one healthy one, we could actually bring the environment up, or we could actually access it. So this will take about, 3 total minutes. This is just making sure that the health checks and all of that pass appropriately. Okay, let's switch over to the deployment guide. I think again we saw all of this, and again I guess the bottom is the DNS delegation. So actually we'll just go back over to the console and we can just wait over here. Do a quick refresh. Oh, we have one running there for the back end, and we have one running for the front end. So again, in theory, you want to make sure you have high availability up and running, but we could actually go to the Loom UI. And if we take a look, where are we? So this is the local host. Now we should actually have, I think it's Loom on YouTube. There we go. And we have the admin user password, admin, and we can log in. And now this is actually a fully deployed Loom environment in your AWS account. Okay, so again, we don't have anything actually configured here, but we are fully deployed. I hope this was helpful. Really want to thank you for taking the time for watching the video, going through this process. Hopefully you'll give it a try and maybe find this is useful. We'd love to also get feedback on it and see how this could be useful for your organization. And again, maybe even give it a try and see if it's something that you would want to actually deploy. Thank you for your time. Look forward to some future videos.